Right now, there is a very good chance that the boots on your feet are the wrong boots for exactly where you are going, not the wrong brand, the wrong category entirely. The outdoor footwear industry uses the same words, hiking, trail, all-terrain, adventure-ready, across boots with completely different constructions. That language gap costs buyers money, ruins trips, and puts people on wet rock with footwear that was never built for it. Today, we map every major boot type, expose exactly who gets fooled by each one, and end with 3 that actually justify the price. One will surprise you. I'm Ranger Jack. 17 years as a backcountry guide and outfitter in the Rocky Mountain High Country. No brand deals, no free product. The shelf behind me holds more failed boots than I want to admit. That shelf is why we're here. Number 7, lifestyle and fashion hiking boots. You know these boots. They are in every outdoor adjacent store, every big box sporting goods aisle, and a large portion of the hiking content you see on social media. Lug soles, thick stitching, muted earthy colors, and mountain imagery on the box. They look like the boot you are supposed to buy. The midsole is soft lifestyle foam, not trail foam, not density-rated foam, built to carry weight across uneven ground. It is foam engineered for a city sidewalk. There is no torsional rigidity, meaning the boot twists under your foot when the terrain shifts, rather than holding a stable platform. The lug pattern is shallow and decorative. The outsole compound is rarely published because there's nothing useful to publish. On a flat paved path or a gentle gravel trail, none of this is apparent. The boot feels fine for the first mile. The failure arrives when the ground goes uneven, the rock gets wet, or the trail starts climbing. The tread slips. The ankle moves when the boot should be holding it. Because the midsole was never density rated for repeated trail load, by the time you feel it giving out, you're already deep into terrain you have to walk back out of. These boots land between $90 and $140. At that same price, a proper light hiker from a trail-specific brand gives you a named outsole compound, real torsional support, and a rock plate protecting the forefoot. Same money, completely different construction. For city use, car camping, or 30 minutes on flat packed gravel, this boot is fine. The moment you call it a hiking boot on real terrain, the category starts lying to you. The lug pattern is decoration. The boot is a sneaker. That one is relatively easy to identify once you know to look. The next trap is harder because it comes from brands that genuinely do make real outdoor gear. Number 6, road-to-trail runners marketed as hiking footwear. These come from brands with genuine reputations in running footwear. Lightweight, responsive, comfortable, immediately out of the box. The positioning is crossover. All surface, do everything, go from road to trail without stopping to reconsider. The presentation is convincing. Running shoes are built for forward motion biomechanics. The foot strikes and rolls forward in a consistent single-direction motion. Hiking requires multi-directional stability. When you are stepping across a slope, dropping onto loose rock, or planting on an off-camera route, you need a lateral platform that holds. A high-stack, soft midsole tuned for running gait does not provide that. It provides cushion moving forward and instability in every other direction. Add a loaded pack and it compounds. The soft foam compresses under the added weight and the foot loses a stable base. The outsole compound is not published on most of these. No named material, no wet grip data, just vague language about multi-surface traction that says nothing useful. 3 separate summers, the same complaint came back from clients. Comfortable on the first several miles, unreliable on anything technical. The boots were not defective. They were doing exactly what they were designed to do, in a context where that was not sufficient. These shoes run $130 to $180. You are paying for a running brand's reputation applied to a problem that running geometry does not solve. Running geometry and hiking geometry are different jobs. This boot is dressed for the wrong one. For fast, light trail running with no pack on dry, well-graded terrain, some of these are genuinely excellent. That is the category they were built for. The trap is expecting a trail runner to perform as a hiking boot. At least this tends to be a cheaper mistake than what follows. The next one costs more and comes wrapped in a waterproof claim that sounds like safety but functions as something else entirely. Number 5. Cheap waterproof low-cut hikers. Waterproof is one of the most effective single-word claims in outdoor retail. It sounds like protection. It sounds like something any serious hiker would insist on. Pair it with lightweight and versatile, and the product appears to solve multiple problems at once for under $110. Many budget waterproof membranes do block water from entering in controlled, dry entry conditions initially. What they also do is trap vapor inside. Your foot generates heat and moisture all day. In a low breathability membrane, that moisture has nowhere to go. By hour 3 on a moderate trail, the interior is wet, regardless of what the weather is doing outside. The waterproofing blocked the rain and locked the sweat in. Seam sealing on budget. Waterproof boots is often partial or absent. The membrane adds weight without adding durability. Breathability is not published because the number is not competitive. The low-cut design provides no ankle support on top of all of this. You are paying extra for a boot that breathes less, weighs more, and cannot honor its central promise under real trail conditions. In light drizzle on a short trail, this category can feel like it is delivering. In a stream crossing, prolonged wet grass, or sustained rain past 30 minutes, the seams admit water. Internal condensation makes the label irrelevant, and the buyer concludes the boots failed. They did not fail. They were never built for what the word waterproof implied to the person who bought them. At $80 to $110, you are in the same bracket as a non-waterproof light hiker with better breathability, a named outsole compound, and longer structural life. The waterproof label costs you money and returns a label, not a system. Waterproof on the label, wet feet on the trail. The membrane is not the problem, the rest of the boot is. Now we move into the mistakes that come with real price tags, and into the most common serious error I have watched people make across 17 years of sending clients up into the mountains. Number 4. Mid-cut day hikers used for multi-day backpacking. This is the most frequent mistake in the category. Not the most dramatic, not the most expensive, the most common. It is common because a mid-cut hiking boot looks exactly right. It covers the ankle. It has a real tread pattern. It feels stable in the store. It is the default recommendation in every outdoor retailer for anyone who asks where to begin. The problem is not the boot. The problem is using a day hiker to do a backpacker's job. A mid-cut day hiker is built for your body moving under its own weight across moderate terrain. The shank, the structural plate inside the midsole that controls how the boot flexes underfoot, is typically partial in this category. That is appropriate for day hiking. You want natural flex, some foot movement, some ground connection. What you do not want is that same partially flexible shank under a 35 to 50 pound pack across 3 or 4 consecutive days. Under load, a partial shank allows the foot to torque when the surface goes uneven. The midsole foam, density rated for body weight, compresses faster when pack weight is added. The ankle collar, designed for short use cycles, starts breaking down structurally by day 2 or 3. The boot that felt completely solid on the first mile is a meaningfully different object by mile 8 on the second day. That is not a defect. That is the product at the outer edge of what it was built to do. I have a boot on the boot morgue shelf in my shop from a 5-day alpine loop that ended early. A client arrived with a mid-cut day hiker. Good brand $130, looked appropriate for the trip. On day 2, on wet talus, the shank had flexed out, and the midsole had compressed enough that his ankle was moving inside the boot rather than the boot holding around it. He rolled it. I carried part of his load down 4 miles of terrain that boot had no business being on under those conditions. The tag still says trail hiking. Neither one of us questioned it before we left. Mid-cut day hikers run $110 to $160. True backpacking boots start at $150 to $200. The price overlap is exactly where the confusion lives. They look similar on the shelf. They are not the same tool. It is a good boot for the job it was built for. Loaded multi-day backpacking is not that job. Here is where mistakes get more expensive and more frustrating. Number 3, over-cushioned maximalist hiking shoes. Maximalist midsoles arrived in road running and crossed into hiking footwear with significant momentum, thick platforms, high stack heights. The promise is comfort across long miles. Let the shoe absorb impact so your body does not have to. The foam looks generous. The feel in the store is genuinely pleasant. The mechanical issue is ground feel. High stack soft midsoles reduce the foot's ability to sense and respond to what it is standing on. The micro corrections your ankle and lower leg make to keep you balanced on changing terrain happen continuously, automatically, throughout every mile you walk. When a thick, soft platform sits between your foot and the ground, that feedback is muffled. On a maintained flat gravel path, the delay is minor. On loose rock, wet roots, or any surface that shifts unexpectedly, it creates instability rather than absorbing it. This problem is invisible on short distances or smooth surfaces. Buyers who use these on easy, maintained trails write honest reviews. They are genuinely comfortable. The failure surfaces when terrain turns technical. On wet rock with uncertain footing, the thick, soft platform undermines balance rather than protecting it. Your foot cannot read the surface accurately, and compensatory ankle movement increases. Stack height is not standardized across brands. There's no published stability rating for hiking shoes. The spec page shows cushion depth and talks about comfort. It does not tell you where the boot performs poorly. More foam between your foot and the ground is often the opposite of protection on technical mountain terrain. These shoes run $150 to $200, competing directly with properly engineered, trail-specific options. More cushion is not more protection. It is more distance between your foot and the ground. On a wet rock, that distance is a liability. The next trap has nothing to do with cushion. It is a seasonal mismatch, and it catches experienced hikers more reliably than beginners. Number 2, warm weather trail runners used in cold, wet, or alpine conditions. This one requires a different framing. Quality trail runners are real gear. If you have reached that conclusion through experience, you are right. The trap here is not the product. It is the season and conditions you bring it into. Trail runners built for warm weather use have no insulation, minimal ankle coverage, and mesh uppers designed specifically to breathe. That breathability is a genuine advantage in dry, warm, below tree-line summer conditions. In cold and sustained wet, it becomes a liability. Wet synthetic mesh does not dry quickly in cold air. Cold feet above tree line are not a comfort issue. They are a physiological one. Prolonged cold, wet foot exposure accelerates fatigue, reduces tactile sensation, and in sustained low temperatures creates a risk that goes well beyond discomfort. The hiker who wore trail runners through a successful summer season does not always recalibrate when the conditions change at altitude. The boot that worked in July starts failing in ways that were not anticipated because the conditions shifted outside the range the boot was designed for. This is not an indictment of the category. For dry summer trail use below tree line, a well-built trail runner with a named outsole compound, a real rock plate, and appropriate midsole stability is often the best available tool for that specific job. The question is whether you are deploying it in a season it was never designed for. The boot is not wrong. The season is. Above tree line in October, that distinction carries real consequences. Now we get to the one most likely to frustrate the most experienced people watching, because this is the trap that catches buyers who already believe they know this category. Number 1, entry and mid-tier boots from premium outdoor brands. This is the largest trap. It works because the brand is genuinely credible. The company's flagship products are, in many cases, excellent. The boots sit in legitimate outdoor retailers right beside the actual premium tier. They share the same visual language, same colorways, same profile, same logo on the side. The price feels like a smart compromise rather than a downgrade. You are not buying budget gear. You are buying a respected outdoor name at a reasonable discount from the top of the line. Here is what you are actually purchasing. Premium outdoor brands run multiple product tiers. The flagship earns its price: full-length, stiff shank, midsole density, rated for loaded multi-day use, a named and traceable outsole compound, reinforced upper materials built for serious mileage. The entry and mid-tier boots use the same brand identity, but different construction underneath. The shank is often partial. The outsole compound is described in vague language: durable rubber, trail-ready outsole, without naming the material or providing performance data. The midsole density is lower. The spec sheet is where the evidence sits. Flagship tiers publish specifications. Entry tiers publish marketing language. Supportive midsole is not a specification. Trail-ready construction tells you nothing about how the boot behaves under a loaded pack on wet technical terrain. When a boot at $170 uses that language while the flagship at $250 publishes named materials and verifiable construction details, you are looking at the fingerprint of a tiered product line. Under multi-day loaded use, the entry-tier boot performs at entry-tier level, because that is what it is. The midsole compresses. The outsole grips less reliably on wet surfaces than a named compound would. The ankle structure fatigues faster under equivalent conditions. The buyer spent $170 on a recognized name and assumed the name carried the construction. The spec sheet says otherwise. No brand partnerships, no free product, no reason to soften any of this. The flagship from these same brands may be exactly the right boot for your trip. The entry tier borrows the credibility that flagship earned without the construction that earned it. The logo is the same. The shank is not. The spec sheet is where the difference lives, and most buyers never read it. Those are the traps. Here's what construction-matched footwear actually looks like. For day hiking on well-maintained trails with a light pack and dry to light rain conditions, the right tool is a quality non-waterproof low-cut trail hiker from a trail-specific brand. Not a lifestyle sneaker, not a crossover runner. A trail hiker built for this exact job. A named outsole compound with published wet and dry grip performance, a genuine rock plate, a low-profile midsole tuned for terrain feedback rather than road cushion, and breathable mesh that manages heat across real miles. These run approximately $120 to $160 from brands that publish what is inside them. It is everything you need and nothing you do not. For multi-day loaded backpacking on variable terrain, wet rock, loose surfaces, real elevation change, the right tool is a full-stiff or semi-stiff mid to high-cut backpacking boot with a confirmed full-length shank, midsole density, appropriate for pack weight, a named outsole compound, and a waterproof membrane that includes a breathability specification rather than just a waterproof claim. These run $180 to $260. Before buying anything in this category, ask two questions. Is the shank full length or partial? Is the outsole compound named on the spec page? Those two questions alone eliminate the majority of wrong choices. This boot costs more because the shank and the outsole are doing real work under real conditions. That is the deal. For cold, wet, or alpine conditions above tree line, sustained cold, snow travel, any environment where warm weather footwear becomes a genuine liability, the right tool is an insulated mid to high cut boot with rated insulation, waterproofing built for actual submersion, stiff construction, appropriate for unstable winter terrain, and sole geometry compatible with traction devices when conditions call for it. These start around $200. That is not an upsell. It is the correct tool for a conditions category that regularly puts people in serious difficulty because they showed up in warm weather footwear. The price is high. So is the mountain. One of those is negotiable. Before you buy any boot, run through this. What is your actual use case? Terrain, season, pack weight, number of days. If you cannot describe those specifically, you cannot match the boot. What is the shank mark on full length, partial, or absent? Match that to your load and terrain technicality. Is the outsole compound named? Durable rubber is not a specification. A named compound with published grip data is. What is the midsole stack and density? Higher is not universally better. Match it to the terrain feedback your use case actually requires. Does the waterproofing claim include a breathability specification? Waterproof alone is one axis. A real system tells you about both sides of the membrane. Does the ankle height match your actual terrain and load? Low cut is not universally versatile. High cut is not overkill. The collar should match the conditions, not a general preference. If you are buying from a major brand, confirm you are reading the flagship tier's spec sheet and not the entry tier's marketing copy. Same logo, possibly not the same shank. Outdoor terrain does not grade on brand recognition. It only responds to whether the construction matches what you are asking the boot to do. That is the only test that matters 10 miles from the trailhead. Before you leave, drop what you are currently wearing in the comments. Brand, model if you know it, terrain you were on, and what failed first. How many miles before something gave out? What do you regret buying? What do you want me to look at next? I read every comment, and if a consistent pattern shows up in what you are all telling me, it becomes the next video. And if you were part of the Womenooch group last season, I know for a fact that at least 6 people on that trip showed up with 6 different wrong boots. Leave a comment. You know who you are.